I'm Vance Bastion, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 28. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Gary Pedler's novel Amy McDougall, Master Matchmaker. Then we'll move on to this week's review of The Stroll and share what's got our attention this week. First, let's welcome our guest. Gary was raised in the Napa Valley when it produced as many plums as grapes, studied at UC Santa Cruz when it was still small and kooky, and made his home in San Francisco before it was annexed by Silicon Valley. Gary's publishing credits include the middle grade novel Amy McDougall, Master Matchmaker, which we're discussing here today, the comic novella Gaydonia, and the travel memoir Couchsurfing the Musical. His shorter works have appeared in the Missouri Review, Berkeley Fiction Review, the Smart Set, the anthology Outer Voices, Inner Lives, and other publications. Gary is currently single and has no children, though he did once have a cat he was very fond of and still dreams about with intense feeling. Gary, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, where did the passion to write come from?
Oh, far back, that's kind of back in the misty past, but I was a big reader, and I think, like a lot of people who become writers, I thought, well, let's see if I'm interested in stories other people are telling. Maybe I will write my little stories. So I did that. But I also think I also started writing a journal, and I think that shows that I really wanted to hold on to experiences and verbalize them. So I think that was the motivation to, and then it was the little acorn from which other things grew, which brings me here with my book.
So, let's talk about your book, Amy McDougall, Master Matchmaker. Dun dun dun.
A plot summary is that Amy is a 13-year-old mixed race girl who was adopted by a single gay dad, and she knows the dad is interested in having a boyfriend, but he doesn't seem to be getting off the dime to find one. So she decides that she's the ideal person to do that. And so she does find him a boyfriend after some comic misadventures. And then, very pleased with herself, she decides to make more matches for the people in her life. So she makes a match for her best friend Grace and for Grace's mom, and then she gets even more puffed up. But in the end, she realizes there's some downside to meddling in other people's lives. So she learns a little lesson about that.
Oh my. So, one of the themes that I liked when I was investigating this was the fact that children just want to see their parents happy.
It is. It's an yeah, well. One of the inspirations for this was an old movie and TV series called The Courtship of Eddie's Father.
Okay.
Oh,
So there was. Oh, you remember
I
that?
didn't see it
Early
yet.
people
60s.
tell me about my best friend.
Oh, I didn't have to listen to the theme song. So obviously, it was a very nice storyline to be seeing over and over again, where the little boy is helping his single dad, trying to help his single dad be happy by finding him a, well, in that case, a girlfriend. So my 21st century update was single gay dad and adopted mixed race daughter, and the daughter's trying to find dad a boyfriend. Yeah, but it's the kids being helpful to the parent.
Awesome. Were there any real life experiences that also played into this novel?
There was there used to be an organization in San Francisco called Gay Future Dads, and so I had a friend who had a partner at the time who was interested in having kids, and so they went to a meeting given by the group, and my friend called me up afterwards, and I was single at that time. I'd broken up with my ex. My friend said, "You have got to go to one of these events because this is where the eligible single guys are. They want to have kids, they're emotionally stable, they're financially stable, and some of them are cute as well." So of course I went like a shot to the next meeting. So there was a little bit of a matchmaking theme. I was looking for a match at the meeting. I didn't find one, but I did have an interesting conversation with a guy named Jeremy, who was already had kids. He was a single gay dad who had adopted two girls in his case. And I had that moment that writers wait for when I was having this conversation with him, and the light bulb went off, and I thought this would be an interesting story. Single gay dad adopted. In the reality, I changed it to one kid. So there was, and I also told him later, I think your story is very interesting, and I would like to write about it. So I actually. Sometimes writers are sneaky and we just listen and ask questions, and then we don't tell the person that we're thinking about using them as grist for our mill. But in this case, I did. So we had a formal, well, not formal, but I had questions. I met him again and had questions for him, and he helped me. So hopefully that helped. I like having a basis in reality for writing. And it's also easier. It was easier to ask him questions, get the facts about how did he go about the adoption, what happened, what was it like when they met for the first time. So though the story is her story, it's told through first person by her. I talked to the dad.
I love that. Is there anything else you want folks to know about the novel? Like, has anybody reached out to you and said, "Wow, this has helped me with my family"? Or
I'm still waiting for that email or message. No, I've tried to initiate experiences where the novel is set in San Francisco, and it's set in the neighborhood where I live. So I took a copy to. Amy starts by going to Everett Middle School, which is down the street from me. So I took a copy there, gave it to the library. Librarian took it to Mission High, which is right across the street from me, gave it to the librarian there. And there's also a branch library for the San Francisco Public Library near me, the Eureka Valley branch. So I took it there. So I love the idea that I haven't heard back from any kids who've read the book, but I like the idea of making it available, and that they would have the kick of reading a novel set in their neighborhood,
right,
in their high school. I don't think there are that many novels set in Mission High and Everett Middle School. So
right.
hopefully it found its way into someone's hands, but
I love it.
haven't contacted me yet.
Well, and something I've been saying all month is if readers can afford a second copy, donate it to their local library, because it's just so important, especially in this age of banning books, that our stories stay in libraries and on shelves.
Right. I've got a cautionary note about that. It's not as easy as you might think to give a book to a library and have it appear in the collection. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but I've been, they tend to want to buy a copy independently. So if you just go in with a book, it's probably not going to end up on the shelves.
I wonder if that's a library system by library system thing.
It may just be San Francisco Public Library. But I've dealt with librarians about, we don't need to go into that, but it's not as simple as you might. There's a procedure. A library is a bureaucracy. So
it is.
Find out the procedure before you go in with the book.
Hey,
100% fair. All right. And is that the library you saw your book in, or was there another story?
Oh no, there was no. So yes, I saw another book of mine in a library, but I have to admit there are two versions of the story I could tell. One is the true version, and the other is this makes it sound better version. I suppose I'll tell the true version now that I've let the cat out of the bag. That there is two possibilities of stories I could tell.
Right.
I was living in Paris, and so that library that had the book, I think you saw a photograph of me on my website. Called the American Library. And in that case, I did go in with the book and say, wouldn't you like to add this to your collection? So in that case, it was that they did add it, but they didn't tell me. So I was in the library one day looking through the shelves that had the new editions, and there was the book with the code on it and everything all officially entered. So I was excited by that. The
Very
fantasy
nice.
version was that they would discover the book and think it was so wonderful and buy it for the collection.
Well, it's sort of choose your own adventure, you know.
Mhm.
Well, I'm a fiction writer, so I can always tell you the real story or a fictional story. There's
Girl, if it was good
multiple
enough for
options.
Judy Garland, it's good enough for you.
There you go.
All right. Anything else that you want to share with folks about your life as a writer?
My life as a writer. I think the most recent development, we could spend hours. I could spend hours talking about that. The most recent development I've been aware of is I was living abroad for many years. I came back to San Francisco a couple of years ago, and I didn't really have writer friends here. So I've started making some, and I'm really enjoying that. I've been going to other people's readings, giving readings myself. I had an event in my house where a group of writers read from their works. We also had a musician. Again, I could make up a fictional version, but there was a musician, a pianist friend of mine, and I also played the piano. So it was called a carousel of words and music. So we had words and music. So I'm finding that nice. Being a writer can be very isolating, and it's
You
nice
should definitely
to
check out you should definitely check out a group that's there in the Bay Area called Bay Area Queer Writers Association.
They're on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm aware of them,
I,
and I think one of the guys who participates in that, yes, I did to materialize, so that's fun. You may not be able to find an agent, you may not be able to find a publisher, but you can find fellow writers and band together and enjoy their company.
Well, and working with the group also helps you like have a shared, booth at Pride events and all sorts of, side benefits
Right.
too, in
Yes.
addition to the friendships.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you want to share about Amy McDougall, Master Matchmaker, or what you got coming up next?
Well, coming up next, I was mentioning the Eureka Valley Branch Library that's near me. I am giving a reading there Tuesday, July 11th from 6 to 7 with another local gay writer, Jim Provenzano. So we're going to interview each other. We're reading each other's books and we're going to interview each other. I thought that would be more fun than the usual I stand up, he stands up, and gives our spiel. So that should be a fun evening. And he's got a trailer for his book. I'm interested in seeing that.
Ooh.
So that'll be another collaborating with local writers moment. I'm looking forward to that.
Very nice. All right. Well, I know you teased us with the Eureka Library event in July. Anything else folks should watch for from you?
Well, I'm about to send out another book to agents. So I have working on the query letter and all that fun stuff.
Nice.
And that book is I think I may have mentioned I was a big journal writer as a kid, and so by the time I was a teenager, they really get to be quite lengthy and detailed, and I think interesting. So I pared them down, edited them a bit, and so it's called Diary of a Teenage Homosexual, 1971 to 1974, and it starts on my first day of high school and goes to my last day of high school, actually graduation. So it's that whole 3 years that are so fraught for a lot of us with who am I? Am I gay? Am I bisexual? What's going on? The teenage, all the usual teenage stuff, and then layered onto that, the gay teenage stuff. So,
right.
And I write about it. I write about not only my sexual experiences, my sexual thoughts, and so it's pretty. I didn't really hold anything back, so I think it's interesting.
I love it.
It was also fun, at least for me, to work on it because it really took me back to that era, early 70s, Vietnam War still going on. So it was the closest thing I could imagine having total recall of every day in high school virtually.
Wow.
What was going on.
I really want to see that book make print because our histories are so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a good read and it also has historical interest.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing about growing older, because suddenly one's youth becomes historical and historically interesting.
Nice. I love the way you look at that.
Look at the positive. You didn't ask me whether I'm an optimist or a pessimist, but I try to be an optimist. A positive. Look on the positive side.
Always look on the bright side of life.
All
right. Is there a social media where you are most active, where folks can follow you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I have a website, GaryPedler.com.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and simple.
And those social links springboard right off your homepage for folks who want to follow one or the other.
I'm sorry.
The links to your Facebook and Twitter are right on your homepage for people who want to come follow you.
Yes, on the website. Yeah, the website's a good starting point to either see write-ups about the books and order them or follow me. Please follow me.
Perfect. Any final words of wisdom?
Oh, words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Words of wisdom. Look both ways when you cross the street, and then look again. Just to make sure these days. Left, right, left again.
Child, I got clipped by a bike messenger in San Francisco. Trust me, I know what you speak of.
And it's Pride weekend, so the traffic is maybe look 4 times. Don't get distracted by the drag queen down the street. You really need
that part right there.
Don't get distracted.
Check for the traffic. Check for the drag queen driving the Big Mac truck. Also,
yeah, Marge.
That reminds me of a song from my teen years, Driving a Truck with My High Heels On. And on that
Wait, you made that up.
I did not. Weird Al sang it.
I'll Google that the minute we're off the line.
Driving a Truck with My High Heels On.
Sung by a...
Weird Al Yankovic, a parody king.
Country western, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's the theme he did it in, for sure. It even starts out with him singing Big and Butch, and then he gets to the high heels, and it just turns funny.
Oh.
All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Gary Pedler for joining us today. Gary, thank you so much, and thank you for putting your book out into the world.
Thank you for chatting with me.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about these artists, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, hit the likes there, help us get up to 500 subscribers. That's all we're asking. And now, on to our review.
Experience that the little time that I was out there, I can't even encompass half of the stuff that you've been through and the history that you're going to share with us. I'm so honored to have you sitting here with us right now.
Well, I feel so blessed to be here to tell my story, because a lot of times when they do stories like this, they cut out the good parts on the true meaning of what we had to go through. Some of it is traumatic. Some of it was happy, some of it was sad, but overall, it was an experience in history that needs to be told.
It's review time. No, there's the dance. I was waiting for it.
Imagine me doing my high kick, because I can't do it here.
Dong. Today we are reviewing the HBO documentary The Stroll, put together by Kristen Lovell. It is, here's the write-up. Sex Work, Survival, Sisterhood. A powerful and poignant history of transgender sex workers in New York's pre-gentrified meatpacking district.
And it's interesting. Actually, somebody wrote the storyline a little further down on IMDb. It says the history of New York's meatpacking district told from the point of view of transgender sex workers who lived and worked there. Filmmaker Kristen Lovell, who walked the stroll, reunites her sisters to recount the violence, policing, and gentrification that led to a movement for transgender rights. And the reason why I think that is a more appropriate write up is because it's acknowledging where the origins of this truly phenomenally fantastic documentary. I was blown away by how brilliantly it was put together, how the crafting of it, the thought process. Kristen Lovell is a force to be reckoned with in filmmaking. Some of the most powerful imagery, the most powerful weaving of the story of these women's lives, not forgetting the sisters who were lost along the way. Truly a fascinating and riveting documentary of, I liken it to the fact that on this show, in Rope Podcast, we've often had a lot of authors who we've batted around from time to time about writing memoirs, and how there's that imposter syndrome thing of like, who would want to read my story, my personal story. But when you listen and watch this and listen to these women tell their tales, even though it's not my experience, I was no less riveted to what they had gone through. These are human beings.
Oh, I watched it twice.
Yeah. Just truly one of the best films I have seen in a great long while.
Something Kristen says early on. Yeah. So early on, Kristen says that she, back in the days when she was walking the Stroll, had been interviewed for somebody else's documentary, and that was what sparked the fire in her to tell stories through film, because she realized her story was not being told her way. It was not her story.
Right.
And truth was edited out, and some of the grittiness was edited out, and she's like, that's not how we lived.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. This is what I think is really odd about like smart TVs and stuff. And I know this is a weird side conversation, but after I watched The Stroll, it was really strange. The high rise that they turned into a park in the gentrification part of it. I started seeing videos in my YouTube about that park, and I'm like, okay, this is creepy. I'd never watched anything else that dealt with that area and that part of it until after I had watched this documentary. And then now I'm seeing all these videos about that one part. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm just saying, I think these TVs are listening to and watching what we're watching. Anyhow, I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, Kristen pulled together the core group of her sisters who were still alive that had walked during the day, 14th Street back in the day, and this is just a powerful, powerful story. It's not that long. It's under 2 hours. I think it was hour 40 minutes ish.
Yeah.
No, hour 25. I'm looking right at it.
I think the one thing that I do want to let people know, watch it through to the credits. Watch the credits, because the credits, you get the wrap up of what these women are doing now.
Yes.
And how the internet actually saved a lot of their lives, because it allowed them to continue to do their work, but then they had control over it.
Yeah.
And that was the part that I loved the most, was watching them adapt and still be able to create an income for themselves in work that they were already doing, but it was under their control. They were able to sort out how, and a lot of them learn how to use computers. I mean, Kristen says, I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I first started, but they persevered. And to see the level of what she produces in this, I mean, I think it's right up there with Paris is Burning. I think it's that level of an amazing documentary. Um, so with that, unless you have something else to add.
I have a couple things to add as we're doing the numbers, but I'll do it as I'm dropping.
Okay. Okay. So mine are 6s across the board.
Nice. All
One
right.
of the few I will actually do that.
Very nice. Mine were 5s across the board, but I want to highlight a couple of things. Script screenplay. This is a documentary, but it's their voices. They're telling their story, and
And there still was some weaving that had to happen.
And there was still a weaving of the stories, but it is for the most part chronological and therefore easy for audiences to follow if this is a life you know nothing about, which most of us don't. Admit it, and it's okay to admit that because you're here to learn. Art direction, costuming. I want to give that one a 6 actually because Kristen pulled in an animator to animate some of the stories that her sisters told, and it's animated in a dark and gritty style that really pulls you in and fuels your imagination to what these women went through at the time. And in many ways, those scenes stick out the most for me because that animation was exactly what that story needed. And directing, I also want to give a 6 because Kristen used what was there, but she didn't shy away from keeping it. And I'm specifically referencing there's a scene where she's interviewing one of the girls and a police siren goes off in the background and they leave it in because both of them have that instinctual gut clenching reaction to the sirens. And they both realize they did it at the same time, and Kristen left that in. And that's a level of truth you cannot get any other way.
Right.
So my personal overall is also a 6, but I wanted to highlight a couple of those other categories because they really are powerful.
Yes. And one thing I do want to add is I want to throw a little wagging finger at IMDb. I haven't looked on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
But IMDb is too absorbed with celebrity in this respect, in that the stars that are listed first are Rudy Giuliani and and yes, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and the segment on them is well worth paying attention to. So children, come listen to your elders, because they do cover it. They also cover RuPaul in a light that's not very flattering.
Right. But to your point, these are not the stars. These
Right.
individuals listed as the stars just have little segments.
Little segments. I would have preferred to have the names of the actual sisters be listed as the stars at the top level, because they are truly the stars of this documentary. Their stories, their lives.
Still doing good work in New York City today.
Yeah, you can have the Rudy Giuliani, RuPaul, blah blah blah, but they should be down to the bottom of this list. They should not be listed first on this documentary. So IMDb, you need to correct that. You need to actually put in the sisters' names, whose stories these are. So that's the one thing I will add. And again, watch it through the credits. You'll get a wonderful, heartwarming wrap up of where things currently are for them. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What are you on about?
I actually only have a couple of things.
Okay.
But it's kind of a small rant. So why don't you go first? Because mine ties into my Who Won the Week.
Okay. So my on about is actually,
and also my cat is laying on my list. So,
all right. So this week's headlines: amid a wave of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation across the country, congressional Democrats have reintroduced the Equality Act. Fingers crossed. I hope they do it right this time. If you don't know what that is, this bill would update existing federal civil rights legislation to explicitly ban discrimination against LGBTQ plus people on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in a number of areas, including employment, education, access to credit, housing, and public accommodations. Come on. Hamburger Mary's won a court victory against Ron DeSatan's drag ban when a judge the law vague and overbroad and said it could apply to neighborhood barbecues as easily as a drag show. The judge placed a temporary injunction on the ban, and the law will be blocked until a court case decides the ban's constitutionality. My own
Yeah,
home
the thing
state
is,
hit the
the thing
headlines.
is, I just want to jump in on there real quick. The thing is,
Hmm.
people don't understand that Ron DeSantis, even though he does all this bullshit, he really doesn't care. It's just chowder
No.
for the, he doesn't talk about them once he's accomplished them, quote unquote. He just
Mm-mm.
lets it go, and if they get hung up in courts or whatever, he's already moved on to another part of
Hmm.
that culture war. So for him, keeping the win is not his thing.
Nope.
So just be aware of that.
Nope.
Anyways, go ahead.
Wisconsin Representative Mark Pocan tweeted a picture of himself donating blood for the first time since the ban on gay men giving blood was lifted. Bravo, Mark. And my final is less of a headline and more of a you need to watch this too. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 2 is this week's episode. Commander Unachin Riley was outed as an alien whose parents had performed genetic modification on her, so she's being court-martialed in this episode. And this episode is a beautiful, beautiful Star Trek nod to what's going on in our world, because Una talks about the fear she and her family had growing up that the neighbors were going to beat her up, the discrimination, the hatred against her people. All of it was there. And it
Sound
is
familiar?
such a commentary on our society right now. It was
Yep.
powerful. And Rebecca Romaine knocked it out of the park as an actor. She knew what she was doing. She had the story to tell, and she was committed. So it's, even if you don't follow the series, you don't need to understand this episode. This episode needs to be seen.
I will have to say, I liked Discovery. I thought the last season was kind of getting out there because it seemed like they just lost the tether of where they were going. But I liked the series as a whole. I liked the cast, everything about it. And I know that a lot of hardcore Trekkies, I'm a Trekker, not a Trekkie, different breed. They had a lot of problems with it because it was so diverse and blah blah blah, which is a whole nother conversation we can have. But um, I think that what they're doing with Strange New Worlds feels very, very comfortable in the old style of the original series. And I think
yeah.
they get that right spot on. And it's everything that's revealed is very organic. So in that way, I could not talk about this show enough because they get it right. They get it right on so many levels. Anson Mount is a great captain. So I'm loving the series. I'm loving the cast. It's got a lot of angles that I just love about it. And then I do like the episodic kind of thing, so you can dive in and watch some episodes and catch up later on others. You don't have to feel like you need to watch serially every single episode. They do have that standalone feel like the original series used to have. So
But if you do watch it serially, they do also trail in a storyline that goes from episode to episode. It's just not crucial that you follow it.
Right. Excellent. So that's what you're on about?
That's my list.
Okay.
Yeah, your rant.
Mine it's a rant, but not in the way people would think. My whole position is I actually ran across a two videos on YouTube, and it spoke to a bigger problem that I see going on in society, going on in the workspace environment, in people's working careers, and that is there are a number of videos on YouTube that talk about how to use AI to make $300 a day using this and this and this, and it goes on and on and on about how there are all these videos that promise you all this stuff. And the problem is it speaks to the part of us as children that want instant gratification. And as an adult, you know better. You know, there is no instant gratification in that way, not without the hard work to get there. There is a channel that is my Who Won the Week, but I ran across it, and it is a channel that dispels all of these mythological other channels out there who are doing this. You can make $300 a day. You can make $10,000 a month, using things that are the hot topic of the moment, be it AI, be it chat GPT, and they talk about it as if it's a get rich quick scheme, which we know they don't exist. That they're just not a thing. Not everyone is going to invent the pet rock and make $2 million in profit. It's just those are flukes. You're not that fluke, okay? Especially if you're watching a video to learn how to be that fluke. So my rant is based on, come on, people, you know how the world works. It's through hard work, dedication, perseverance, and honing your craft. Much like being an author and being on this podcast, you just get better over time. I'm also up about all these people who do these YouTube videos of how you can market yourself and become a new viral sensation. Now, child, just stop. Just do the work. Do the work you're passionate about. Vance and I do this because we're passionate about queer media in queer spaces. So we do this. It's out of our own pocket right now. We hope to get monetized soon. So therefore, please subscribe, because we only need 500 subscribers and 3,000 hours of watch time. And we're doing well in the watch time, but we need some more subscribers. So do what you can to get subscribed. Just press the button. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out a lot. But in that, we're doing the work. We continue to produce. We continue to interview people. We continue to get people's word out there. We know we have to work towards that, okay? These children nowadays want that instant viral gratification because someone else got it. Well, what you don't know is 90% of the time, those people are faking it. It's not a real thing. They buy bots to increase their numbers. It's all a scheme, and you need to understand the people who have the longevity in it are the people who do the work. And in that, there's a dual two channels that I really want to bring up. One of them is called the Editing Podcast, and Hilliard, I can't think of his name. I'll fly it up here. He's a big YouTube editor who was the editor for Paul Logan and the Logan brothers. And so he's got a huge reputation of being a really good editor for that type of content on YouTube. But he and another filmmaker have decided to start the Editing Podcast. And one of the things they're working on is the dispelling of how if you copy someone else and that's great for honing your craft, but you being a copy of someone else is not what makes you go viral. You have to find your spin, and that only comes through the work, again, that you put into it. And I really recommend people, if they have a YouTube channel, this is the one you want to watch, because this is the one where they talk to real editors who are making a career for themselves in the YouTube space. And they have frank conversations about what it's worth to get paid, how, you have these, because it's not governed by the Hollywood industry. So therefore, union standards do not apply. A lot of people who are hungry to become editors will often seek out big YouTubers and want to work with them. And these YouTubers know they could take advantage of these people because they don't have the experience. So you have to kind of just put your mindset. I'll give you a prime example. I actually follow a guy by the name of Artur Rihi, who I have talked about on this show. He is an Estonian soldier who is doing a lot of work right now for the Ukrainians. And his YouTube channel is great. I actually reached out to him because he was looking for an editor for his podcast. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I do a podcast, blah, blah, blah. I can help you with this if you need some help. Here's my hourly rate. And so he thought that it was okay. So we did a couple episodes, worked on them together. He liked what I did. He liked what I produced. But then he said my rate was a bit high for him. And I get that we all have different rates, but what he needs to understand is I'm a person in California, one of the highest rent markets and the highest markets, period. I'm also in the entertainment capital of the world, part of the world. And so rates are going to be higher just because of where I'm placed. That's the only way I can establish and make money for myself that's profitable. So, he kept trying to talk me down to a slightly lower rate. I could have taken it. I would have had great exposure because he has I think he has like 100,000 followers. And so I would have gotten more exposure that way. I could have networked. But the problem was I didn't feel that my editing talents, and it's like, and you can see the editing work I do here at Rote, that my editing talents were worth that drop. You have to know your worth. And this editing podcast, really, even if you're not an editor, the conversations they're having is knowing your worth, knowing the value of putting in the work, knowing the value of honing your craft, no matter what it is, gets you to where you eventually want to go, which is how the world works. Just because ChatGPT is out there doesn't mean you can now shortcut it and become an instant millionaire. That's not going to happen. You guys need to get that out of your head. It's not a thing. This leads me to my Who Won the Week. There is a wonderful YouTube channel that is dispelling all of these myths, and that is How Money Works.
A good grift requires people to believe 4 things. People need to believe it's credible, people need to believe it will give them wealth or a better life, people need to believe it will be easy, and people need to believe that the grifter has a secret to making it all work. AI is going to be a better opportunity for scammers than cryptocurrency, and it's already starting.
But I'm going to be going through exactly how you can use this new AI bot called ChatGPT to help you when it comes to making money online.
In this video, I'm going to show you a stupid, easy way to make money with ChatGPT.
I don't need to tell you about ChatGPT. If you have been anywhere on the internet in the last 6 months, you already know about what it and other programs like it can do.
And it's great because they approach every single one of these viral sensation things, and then they break it apart and show you how that virility that happened is not a real thing, and that there are other contributing factors that give it the illusion of get rich quick. But that's not how things work. They did a brilliant one. The first one I saw was on social media influencers, quote unquote, and what that whole scheme is all about. And they broke it down and showed you how all of these people, Logan Paul, all of the big names in YouTube space, how they have these products that they sell, but the products are substandard. They're shit. But yet, because of the number of people that they have, so what they do is they create these things, and they even brought up Ryan Reynolds with the Mint Mobile thing. They create these products which are substandard, but they're not interested in selling the product so much as that using and marketing their own name brand, being associated with it, and then they sell the company off to a competitor who buys them up so they're no longer in business. That's where they make their money. And so you begin to see how this influencer thing really works and how it's not what it's presented as on face value. So How Money Works is my winner of the week because it reminds people how the real world fucking works. Go watch this channel. It will enlighten you to the stupidity that's out there and how we all know deep down inside how this really works, and we need to just be reminded of it. So they won my week. Go watch How Money Works. Great YouTube channel. And also check out the editing podcast. It's well worth the watch, just from a you need to know your value kind of position. You?
My win of the week is Sarah McBride. A Delaware state senator announced her bid to run for one of Delaware's Senate seats at the federal level. If she wins, she'll be the first out trans person elected to Congress. She will be running for the seat of a Democratic predecessor who is just retiring, so it's not a competition with an incumbent. Fingers crossed, but Man, she won my week. That announcement made me so happy. And it tied into the Stroll, and it wasn't even intentional.
Yeah. Giving it up for our trans brothers and sisters and NBs out there.
All right. Any words of wisdom?
Nope, that was my words of wisdom. It was all in the rant. Do the work, people.
All right, then. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roadpodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Follow us on YouTube. Help us hit just 500. That's it. That's all we ask. And tune in next week for your Queer Media Fix.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.